Hello, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again this week on Becoming a High Value Woman series with Ruth Liebel and Sherry Brazier. We have another special guest for you today, and I'm so excited about this conversation. Who has social differences with their husbands? Our guest today is Erin Woodruff, and she is an expert on introverts and extroverts and relationships and how they just are so fun in all these relationships that we have: the extroverted wife or the extroverted husband married to the introvert, and all of the social experiences that we get to have, right? So we are going to dive in. I'm going to let Erin introduce herself, tell us who she is, who she coaches. She is a coach, and what we're going to be talking about today. So Erin, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Awesome. Sherry, I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me. And you kind of already summed it up. I coach high achieving women, extroverted women married to introverts. And just like typically we're like our ideal client, that is usually us. And so I kind of fall into that category where I want more things than my husband does as far as like social interaction and doing things and keeping my schedule busy. So we've had to navigate a lot of different parts of our social life and just our personal lives and how do we manage that. And I realized that I'm not the only one who struggles with this. So that's why I'm happy to be here and share as much as I can.
Oh, so awesome. I am the extroverted, high achieving woman myself in our marriage. My husband is a high achieving introvert with extroverted tendencies. So he does have some extroverted tendencies. It's probably because he's married to me.
Right.
And I do think that that has something to do with it. So, Ruth, do you want to chime in? Do you have anything to add to the conversation? You want to introduce yourself or anything to our people?
No, I'm excited. So Erin and I grew up in the same town, and her mom was actually one of my church leaders with the like young women. And so I know that her mom, and I know all of her sisters, one of her oldest sister was like one of my best friends. So I know that Erin is a super high value lady. And I know that her mom is amazing and has produced six, right? There's six of you.
Yeah, there's six of us.
Super high value women. So Erin comes from like a breed of women that's what they do. Is they're just awesome. So I am super excited to hear from Erin. My husband and I are actually flopped. I am very introverted. I'm an introvert that likes people one-on-one, like usually. And Erin, you'll talk about this. And I was always miscategorized because I'm not shy. I'm not shy. And so people will, even friends were frustrated, like, Ruth, why don't you want to go play? Like, these are your friends. And I couldn't explain why. I always just felt like I was a loser or like the deadbeat, but we operate different. So I'm excited because I'm going to be reverse engineering this. So
I think that's great.
You're going to be talking to the extroverted women. So any other women who are listening, if you're like, I'm not an extrovert, this doesn't apply to me, you can reverse engineer this like I'm going to do so that you can understand your husband and then apply some of the principles, either the same or backwards. You just have you're coming from it from the other side of the spectrum.
Which I think is going to be the most valuable part of this conversation, because we're going to have both things highlighted, because I'm the extroverted wife with an introverted husband, and you are an introverted wife with an extroverted husband. So, and Erin is going to be able to navigate all of the things, and this is going to be the best conversation. I'm so excited about it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm super excited.
Okay, so Erin has 4 to 5, I think I wrote down 5 topics that we're going to talk about when it comes to I mean, I don't know that they're the only 5,
but
definitely probably top 5. And especially this time of year, we're going to throw in some holiday talk, but 5 of the top issues or social interactions that husbands and wives have difficulty navigating in their marriage. And if we can just get a little bit of a different perspective and maybe some tools to help get in our toolbox to create some more communication around some of the stuff that I think we will be able to up level our relationships with our spouses, with our husbands, which then in turn up levels our marriage. So I'm going to just turn it over to you, Erin. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, the first thing that I always love to touch on, especially when we're talking about extroverts versus introverts, is just being able to understand the difference. I think these are kind of buzzwords that get thrown around, but like Ruth said, she was mislabeled. And that is one myth I love to touch on right there, is that introversion does not equal shy. If you're an introvert, that does not mean you're shy. And I think that is like a really big misconception right off the bat. The other myth that I love to just bring out front right off the bat always is that extroversion is not better than introversion. That is something that I've had to personally learn, because I think, well, side note, the reason why I learned all of this in the first place, I read a book when I was first married, and it's called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. That is one of the best resources that you can have if you want to learn more about this, if you feel like you're stuck in this social dynamic in your marriage. So I'll say it again. It's called Quiet.
Yeah, say it again.
Yeah,
I'm
Quiet.
putting it in my audible
Yeah.
list right now.
Yeah. So the title is just called Quiet, and then the subtitle. So it's Quiet, and then the subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And the author is Susan Cain, and I will always give credit to her for my education as far as learning the differences, and also just having my own enlightenment and understanding, and just like, aha, like this is why. And she talks about, in the book, she really talks about how extroversion is prized more than introversion is in our society, specifically in Western culture. Not as much as in Eastern culture, but very, very much in Western culture. And I realized, like, wow, I really was given all these rewards, all this praise my entire life because I was an extrovert. And my best friend in high school, she was an introvert, and I was always pushing her to like be an extrovert. And now that we're adults and it's been long enough, I can realize like, wow, I really pushed her. But she also will tell me now, thanks for pushing me, because I wouldn't have done anything in high school if you hadn't pushed me. But in my mind, I was thinking my whole life, like, you're wrong, you're not doing it right. But I didn't attribute that to like this distinct difference between an extrovert and an introvert. So those are the two myths, is that the two that I feel like are the most prevalent is that we do think extroverts are better than introverts, that those qualities are better, and that introverts are shy. So right off the bat, if you can understand that both of those are false, it can help you to relax into the idea of welcoming all the differences in your relationship.
I love it. I appreciate it, Erin. Thank you.
You're welcome. So as far as breaking down the extroverts versus introverts, first of all, it's a spectrum. It's not one or the other. And I really loved Susan Cain's book. She gives you a whole quiz. She has like 30 questions where you walk through and you answer yes or no, and you keep track. And then she introduces a new type of social spectrum. It's called ambivert. And so there's introverts, there's extroverts, and there's ambiverts. And it was the first time I realized, like, oh, maybe I'm an ambivert. Maybe I actually do have way more introverted tendencies than I thought I did. And so if you're not sure where you're at, or maybe your partner's at, then know that it is a spectrum. It can range. And so you might be extroverted in some scenarios, but then have introverted tendencies in others. And that's really normal. And I like to explain this. If you don't understand the difference, I think most people do, but the extrovert introvert difference is primarily in social settings. And one way I love to explain it is extroverts wake up with a metaphorical empty glass, and their glass is completely empty. And throughout the day, every interaction they have with someone is water into their glass. It's a drop of water into their glass. And at the end of the day, the extrovert is feeling very full, very alive, very rejuvenated. And that is how they have satisfied themselves throughout the day. On the other end, introverts start their day with their glass full. And every interaction they have throughout the day, they're dumping some of their water out. And so by the end of the day, introverts, you'll typically hear them use words like drained, I'm out of energy, I'm exhausted. And if you think about it with like a water glass, it's easy for you to visualize, oh, they really have like given all of their water away today. Like their cup is empty. And they'll even use that phrase, my cup is empty, like I'm completely drained. And so I like that
a battery is also a good metaphor.
Yeah, battery's another really, really good metaphor. So that is one way I like to explain it, because at the end of the day, introverts typically want to spend time alone. And extroverts, usually at the end of the day, they're like, what can we do tonight? So that right there is like a really big difference. So I don't know if you guys have questions or comments.
No, I think that's perfect. It's not about, it's not a social anxiety. When I go into a social situation, I'm not anxious. I'm not like, what are people thinking? Like, I'm totally fine. I observe, I love to observe people. But like the end of church or the end of a party, like I have to go sleep. Like don't come at me with 7 people. Come at me one at a time. Like I really just like crash. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that like if I'm in a sad mood or I'm just have low energy or whatever, I just have to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like go to the mall. I don't even need to shop. I don't have to do anything. I just need to be around people. It doesn't even matter who the people are. They don't even have to be my friends. Like just being around people like fills up, like it's the energy, like I gather energy from them.
Yep.
And so then I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can go now. And
Yep.
don't even have to have an interaction with someone. I don't even have to talk to anyone. It's just be around people.
Yep. I would agree. For me, it's like, okay, I have to leave my house. I've got a little toddler and I'll just like, okay, let's just go on a walk and I'll just take her out. And I usually see people, right? Like I live right by a park, people have their dogs, and that is another great example of something so small, but it's like rejuvenating for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where most people are like, no.
I think a litmus test if people are like, okay, I don't really get this, is during 2020, the social shutdown, what were your experiences and why was it hard? Because like, I remember a GIF and it was like extroverts during the social shutdown was like, they're crazy. And then it was like introverts were like glowing and we're happy. 2020 was the best year of my life.
Yep. You're not the only one. It was a hard year for most people, but you're not the only one.
You could not say that. You were not allowed to say that because so many people were struggling, but it was the best year.
Right. Which I think that's a great example of like, think about 2020. What were you doing? How were you feeling? And for me, I experienced a little bit of both, but I realized like, oh, I actually do need people. So
yeah.
So
okay, moving on, Erin. Good job.
Moving on. So if anyone has any questions about that, I actually do, or if you don't know where you're at, I actually do have quizzes on my website. They're completely free, where you can take a quiz about you or your partner. Are you an extrovert or an introvert, or are you married to an introvert? Which I think is fun to just kind of figure out and know. And I pulled a lot of my data from Susan Cain's book just to really make sure I was using credible resources. So I think it is kind of fun to learn a little bit about yourself and your partner and your husband, because then you figure out, okay, this is how we can do it. So specifically, so that's kind of who I work with, but I really focus in on the communication piece of it. I call myself a communications coach. I studied communications in college. I love communications, helping people learn how to communicate with each other. And this is something that I like to help people bridge the gap, because if you've never talked about your social differences, or if you're just always attacking each other because of your social differences, I want to give you like, maybe there's a better way. Like maybe you could actually be happy and really have a lot of fun when you understand and can respect your differences and figure out how to manage them a little bit better. So I really like diving into the communication piece of it specifically, and how do you bring up a conversation about this? And where I would encourage anyone to start is, you can't come from an attacking place. I always like especially when I was learning about this, because I was thinking that I was having problems in my marriage because it was my husband's fault, right? Like that's just always the answer. And when I was reading Susan Cain's book, I realized, oh, we are just starkly different. And so I approached it from a place of, this is what I'm learning. This is something that I've learned about myself. This is something I've learned that maybe is true in our relationship. And I would ask my husband questions like, is this like, I think you're an introvert. Is that true? Like, does this resonate with you? And I was just kind of trying to like field, am I right about this? Is this accurate? Because I have siblings, like Ruth mentioned, I have 5 sisters, and my dad is really introverted, and I have some introverted sisters, but again, I always thought they were wrong. And it was the first time I had
Socially
ever,
awkward. They
yeah,
have
they're
poor social
wrong,
skills.
right?
Yeah.
And it was the first time in my life of like, okay, if I really am going to really stay happily married to this person, I need to understand and respect their differences and honor them. So I started approaching the conversation really slowly, but also from a place of like, this is what I'm learning. Does this resonate with you? And that was something that worked well for me, but I also think it allowed him to realize like I wasn't trying to attack him or even label him, but I was just trying to figure out like, what are the differences here? And he would tell me like, yeah, I do resonate with that. Or yeah, I guess I've never really thought about that. I guess you might be right. I might be an introvert. And now we've been married for 7.5 years, and like we talk about it very openly. It's just part of our everyday life. But at the beginning, it was really difficult to bring up because I felt like there was something wrong with one of us. And that's not true either on anybody's part, right? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just about figuring out why you're different and then working around that so you can really respect and honor each other.
I think
I love that, because if you approach something, or if something is viewed as wrong or broken, then you're going to handle it differently. Like, you need to fix it, you need to replace it, you need to whatever. But if it's just like, this is what we have, how do we best use it? Right? Like if you're trying to use a can opener as a blender, good luck. But when you're like, oh, this is the can opener, this is what I use it for, and then you use it to open up all your lids, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But you use it appropriately, you use it for its superpowers instead of trying to force it into something else. It's not wrong with the can opener. It's just a can opener.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree. You explained it way better than I was going to. But my experience so far with my husband, we've been married for 25 years. So we've had a lot of experiences. We've gone through a lot of things. We've had a lot of opportunities to kind of come together, and a lot of opportunities to clash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have learned over the years is this yin and yang thing, because there's so many things that we are drastically different in, that I have realized is what makes our relationship the most powerful. Because I stopped like thinking that the way that he was doing it was wrong. And I started trying to figure out like, how is that the perfect thing that I need in this situation? Like, how are his introverted tendencies, or whatever his personality traits are, whatever, exactly what I need as support? Not that mine are wrong, but how can his support me to make it better? Instead of like, I'm right, you're wrong. These two things are like oil and water. They don't mix together, because I spent so much of the beginning part of our marriage like that. And now it's like, no, oil and water actually go really well together in an Italian dressing, and it tastes delicious. So like, how can that work? How are we like an Italian dressing where just oil wouldn't be very good and just vinegar wouldn't be very good? Like, we are like this magical dressing together. And it really has opened up my brain to all of the wonderful things that he has about himself as an introvert that I don't have, that are amazing. I'm so grateful for all of the things that he has that are not me, because it makes my experience so much richer now.
I love that you bring that in, Sherry, because I would echo that 100%. The thing that I would say I've learned the most from my husband is listening. I wouldn't have said I was never a person that didn't listen, but he listens so well to the point of like not saying anything and that being the right answer, you know? Because I think I want to just jump in and chime in and, like have conversations like this, right? And just we're talking about something, we're diving in, we're dissecting. And he is so good at just listening to what's not said, listening to everything that is said. And then when he responds, it's meaningful, it's thoughtful, and you listen because he doesn't talk near as much as I do. And so that is, I would agree. When you observe their behavior, you can see how you can blend and how you can actually complement each other so much more to create a marriage. And if you have kids, like parenting, that is so dynamic for your kids because you're definitely not going to parent the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So one of the things that I teach my people, and everybody listen, I think we've mentioned this in the money one. Married couples who figure out marriage, they have 4 times the financial wealth than their single counterparts. And part of that is this like variety. And when you like attach yourself, the scriptural word we would use is yoke, right? You get into the yoke together and you're laboring together and you have more than double the strength because as a team you have it. So I learn things from my husband. My husband learns things from me. We can split and conquer. But I know my whole life, my best friends, like in every stage of my life, my best friend was always an extrovert. I needed an extrovert because if introverts are left to ourselves, we go into hermit mode, right? And it's extroverts do need time alone. And introverts do need friends and people and social interactions. It's just our natural way of interacting with the world. So I don't accept or realize I need social interactions until I am like depressed and I haven't talked to anybody in 3 months, right? So that's why an extrovert was always the appropriate best friend, is because she would call me, or he would call me and be like, hey, let's go, let's do this. And then I could be like, shh, we need to just sit down and just like be into our brains for a minute, right? So we keep each other sane. And if like we don't talk to each other, introverts were like, hi, nice shirt, bye, right? But an extrovert is like, I want to talk to you. So extroverts and introverts need each other. We balance each other out. And when it's in that marriage and you like can't get away with them, like you can't, you know what I mean? Like you're their partner forever and they're your partner forever. You have to learn from each other. And I would say when Patrick's around, I am way more extroverted. I am. He makes it more fun. He's my safe place, right? Like as an introvert, I need my safe place. I need the person that I can just be like, okay, just shut the world out for a minute. You know what I mean? So I love that. And Sherry, yeah, you do create something magical together that's more than just the 2 pieces separately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And Ruth, I want to ask you a question because I want to see if it's true for you. When you are having a conversation with your husband, do you have a conversation over the span of days, or do you like to kind of get in and get out of a conversation?
Okay, so this is what I know about introverts. We have our people. Like once you make it into the circle, then you can't get us to shut up. So Patrick has made it into my circle. He's not around much. So I haven't had the opportunity to get tired of him. I haven't had the opportunity to get exhausted of Patrick because the natural method of our life, like he's just not around. But we text frequently during the day. Like when he's out of town and we'll talk in the evening. But when he's home, I have yet to have a day that I'm like, stop talking to me. But we also can work quietly together. So I don't know.
And the reason, no, that's totally fine. The reason why I asked is because I do think I like that you brought in, like, it changes, right? And once you're in your inner circle, the reason why I asked you that question is because when I'm helping my clients through these, like if you're having a hard conversation about finances or about social differences or about your sex life or about parenting, religion, whatever it is, I really try to encourage, especially if you're the extrovert, give your introvert partner plenty of time to process and digest, because this might be a conversation that goes on for a few days. Or it might be a conversation that doesn't happen for a week because they need to think that through it before they're ready to before they're ready to talk about something. And that's definitely something I've learned from being married to an introvert is I'm ready to like have a conversation about anything, and I'm just like word vomit, right?
Mhm.
I'm just speaking out loud, and I'll eventually get to my conclusion of how I feel about something or what we should do. But for him, he really wants to get all the information, analyze it. He's also an engineer, so that's another piece. But he wants to like analyze the data, think about it. But when he talks, like I said, he's going to be very genuine in what he says, and he's not going to verbally process, he's going to internally process. So is that the same for you? And I would ask the same question for Sherry too, because I do think that's a huge part of communication in a marriage, is understanding how you're going to process information.
Well, part of me wants to say that might be stereotypical male and female. And stereotypes are a stereotype for a reason. People like, I know that people are like, don't stereotype, but they're like, it's like the bell curve. Stereotypes are like that middle line of a group. I think women, the stereotype or the psychological like pattern is women don't know what we think until we talk it through.
We are audible processors.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that could be like we're dealing with an introverted woman in
Mhm.
my marriage and an extroverted man. So if I were an extroverted woman, I might wear the hell out of him. Like it might be a really good thing because I do like to talk. My brain is always going a million miles an hour. So if I were also extroverted, I think I would never have any friends.
That's not true.
It might be. I might exhaust myself.
I exhaust
were an
myself
extrovert.
sometimes,
I exhaust myself.
but I wanted to, oh, go ahead.
I don't know. That sounds like the beautiful part about people is there's so many pieces to it. Like there's no one thing that would be the answer for why we are the way we are. So that sounds like we have an extroverted woman and an introverted man is what I would say that. I love to talk. And I don't know if this is an introverted thing or this is another level. Small talk makes me nuts. I'm so awkward when people want to talk about the weather or like dress colors, like people I don't know. Like I can't. I want you to come in and be like, I had this brilliant thought, and then I'm listening. I am so there in the conversation. But if it's like, hey, your kids did this thing and it was so cute, then I'd be like, okay. I don't know how to have that conversation. So I don't know if that's an introverted thing or if that's another element of personality breakdown somewhere. I don't know. But conversations with Patrick, when he wants to talk to me about anything, I am there. I love to talk about real things. Is that the answer, maybe?
Well, no, I don't think there's a right or wrong. The reason why I asked is because I do think it might be a man versus woman thing, but I also think, again, going back to the differences, understanding the differences, how you're processing information, how you like to communicate. I love that you understand who you are, how you like to be with Patrick and by yourself and whatnot. And I love the alternative perspective you offer, because I don't think there's one right way. I'm just trying to offer new ideas to anyone that feels like they're struggling. So I think that's great that you're offering more ideas for sure.
Well, and I think it's important for us to because I think society really wants to pin a right and a wrong. Like society really wants men to be wrong in a lot of things so that women can be right in that same space. And I have two things. Like I always think if there's a villain, there has to be a victim. And I don't like the victim mentality. I don't like feeling like a victim. My personality really struggles with the complainer, the victim-y. Like I really have a hard time with that because my energy is so high and I'm a motivator, I'm a doer, and I'm a problem solver. And I don't know if that's also extroversion too, but coming back to the conversation with, talking with your husband or your introverted spouse, do they need time to, process or whatever? I think that part of my personality or extroversion is that I'm a problem solver and I don't like the victim thing. And so I think for me, I had to realize that processing time isn't necessarily wallowing time, like wallowing in whatever is happening. It's his own version of problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I realized, oh, we just problem solve different, and it doesn't mean that I'm better or worse, or he's better or worse. And same with society. Like men are better at things than women. They just are.
Yeah.
And guess what? Women just are better at things than men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay. We don't have to be good at the same things. And like I said earlier, it really is great that we're not good at the same things, because we make each other better because we're good at different things. So the kind of the second thing, but it very well supports this whole idea. Our oldest boy is an introverted extrovert, and he's very social. Like, he can do the social thing, but like if he's invited to something, then he's going to be there and he's super, social while he's there. But he was never the one to invite friends over, or if he wanted to go do something, he wasn't going to be the one that like asked someone, hey, do you want to go ride bikes around the neighborhood? He just wasn't going to be that guy. He just waited at home for someone to come and, invite him to something. And that was something that I struggled with because I'm an extrovert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until he was teenager-y age that we would talk to him about something and he was super quiet. Like, he just wouldn't respond. And my husband and I would have conversations like, why doesn't he like respond? It's like, I don't know what's happening. Anyway, then like 2 days later, he would come to us and say, hey, I want to talk to you about XYZ. That was what we had talked to him about 2 days later or 2 days earlier. And so I realized that when there's an important thing that we are talking about, we need to tell him the things that we want to tell him, the way that we believe, or the way that we think it should go, or what we think he should do, or blah, 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 whatever. And then I just know he needs to take that to himself for a couple of days, process it, come up with the way that he wants to solve, or the questions that he has, or whatever. And then he will come to us and say, I'm ready to talk now. And then we have a beautiful, great conversation. And I've learned that that's how he processes things, and that's how he problem solves. And just like with my husband, it has made the most awesome conversations that we've been able to have. But it has required me to be patient and to be quiet, which has been hard for me. I'll just say it.
Yeah. You just described my husband right there, Sherry. But it makes the biggest difference. But I have just had to sit back and be like, okay, can I shut my mouth now? Can I be patient? Can I wait without making all this drama and story of like, he's avoiding me, he doesn't want to talk about this, he doesn't think this is a big deal? And that's where the work comes with you, right? Is having 100%. To be like, okay, I trust them. I know that they are going to come back to me with their honest thoughts, and something great's going to come out of it. But understanding the difference, and everyone's going to vary, but that is definitely what you just said is like how my husband is. And it's great now, but sometimes still frustrating because I'm like, I just want an answer right now.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that I want an answer, and I'm sure the reason that you want an answer, is so that we don't have to manage he doesn't think this is a big deal, he's thinking I'm of this, he's going to leave me, blah, 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 blah. Like all of that mind chatter that we create in the waiting period of time. The reason that we don't want them to have that period of time is because we don't want to manage that part of our brains.
100%. I agree with you.
And like, that's on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on him. It's not his responsibility to manage my emotions. he's trying to figure it out. Like I got to manage my own stuff that
Mhm.
happens in that waiting period. Ruth, I can
Yeah.
tell you want to say something.
Well, I have a question because sometimes we can get too general in our examples. So now I'm wondering, like, what conversations are you having with them? Because I'm trying to think, like, am I really hesitant when Patrick asks me to do stuff? And I would say the time that I need to process is when he's asking me to do something social. I have to process to figure out what can I really do? Because there's too many times in the past
Mhm.
that I've been like, that's what the good wife does. She has his 29 coworkers plus all of their people over for dinner. So then I'm like, that's what the good wife does. So then I do that. And I am a crazy person at the end of it or before it because I'm like,
Mhm.
so then I've learned I have to be really honest in what I can offer and what I can respond. So if it's a matter of like, what's your opinion on this? I don't have any problem. But if it's like, hey, can we do this social thing? I have to have time to process, to be like, what can I do? And for me, it's like my energy is like a budget. I have to budget it. Like I can't have people over for dinner the same day I went grocery shopping. That is not happening. Not happening. Right.
Yeah.
So I have to like process those kinds of things. So I guess like not to overgeneralize, but
Yeah.
because introverts and extroverts, we can have conversations about stuff. I guess it would be what conversations are particularly hard for extroverts to have with their introverts is my question.
That is fabulous insight. I love that because I think that is exactly what the distinction is. So if I'm going to give you an example for with the situation with Curtis, is it was a long time ago, like he was a teenager, right? And we were talking about curfews. Like when does he need to be home for curfew? And we wanted it to be like a blanket across the board, or like Monday through Thursday, you're here at whatever time, and then on the weekends and whatever time, right? So we were, and it was social. That's what it was. It was social. And so then he needed to think about like, how does he really feel about this? And then he came back with this is what I want to be able to do. And these are the reasons why I want to be able to do it. And so because he was able to formulate his thoughts, it gave us more information about what he needed socially and how we could support him socially. So yeah, it was social. I mean, there's other things too, but the thing that I was thinking of when I said that was social. It was a curfew situation.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And the example I'll give right now, because we mentioned we'll talk about the holidays. I brought up holiday planning at the beginning of October with my husband. And I said, I know this is still 3 months away. I know that we still have so much going on in our lives, like work and family and everything. I know we have so much going on, but I really want to talk about how are we going to manage ourselves during the holiday time? And I asked him very specific questions. I asked him like, how much time do you want to spend with your family? How much time do you want to spend with our immediate family, like our little family? How much time, or what do you want to specifically do throughout the holidays? Are there movies you want to watch? Are there places you want to go? Are there things you want to buy? And I like brought it up probably 6 weeks ago now. And we've had so many conversations through October. And as things have evolved and like you start planning with extended family and stuff, things start coming on your calendar. But because we'd already been talking about it for weeks, when someone said, we're having a holiday party on December 13th, can you guys come? It wasn't the first time we had had a conversation about the holidays or how you mentioned it, Ruth, budgeting your time and your energy, right? Because it's not just finances that we're budgeting our time and energy. And so every time a new like holiday plan is introduced, we're talking about it, because I'm usually like 100% game to go. Like, yeah, let's do it. That's great. And I've had to take into account, okay, what is too much now for my family, for my toddler? What can I manage with her? But also my husband. Like, is this with my family? Is this with his family? How many people are going to be there? Where do we have to drive? How long are we going to be there? What does that what does it require from us? And honestly, because we started the conversation weeks ago, now that the holidays are really starting to ramp up and like planning and events are starting to happen, he's a lot more ready to just kind of make decisions on the fly because he's kind of already processed through all of that. But we are much more on the same page of like, oh, we already decided we're not going to that event this year for these reasons. And even though I'm a little bit sad, I'm also like, no, this is what I want to do. We've already decided as a couple, as we're parents of a toddler, and we've decided like, oh, the grandparents might be upset, and that's okay. It's just stuff like that. And it's helped us to be better united as far as like, we're going to these family events and not these ones. We're doing this with friends and not with just to really help budget out the time that we're spending together as a small little family and creating Christmas memories and holiday memories together, and the time with larger family, or even going to like the Festival of Trees or the German Christmas Festival in Salt Lake, just all those things, just trying to really figure out what do we want to do. And those are kind of like, again, we're still talking about it, and we will be continuing to talk about it for the next 8 weeks until Christmas or New Year's, but hopefully that gives you more clarity too, as far as like having a conversation that could be ongoing as well.
Yeah, I love that. And just for time's sake, I think that works. That is a great idea to do for holiday planning. I think it's awesome, because I'm the same way as an extrovert. Like, I do all the things, and then he is not wanting to do all the things. So I think it's a really good idea to talk about it in advance, so that I think when emotions are high, intelligence is low. So if you're like, well, but so-and-so invited us to go to this party on Friday night, and I can't believe you don't want to go, and I want to go, like, you're in the moment and all the emotions are happening, and then you respond as your emotions are happening. But if you have the conversation before the emotions are happening, then your intelligence and at least for me, I want him to be happy. I want him to feel safe. I want him to have a good time. I want to have a good time. I want it to be good for both of us. I don't want to make decisions when emotions are high. Yep. For him, emotions are high, and me, emotions are high. I don't think that's the best time to have decisions being made. So I love that. I really want to get into doing what you want to do when they don't want to join you. I think that's a really good topic. Yep. And for sake of time, I don't want to miss that one. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah, I love talking about this. And the topic that I want to bring into this specifically is emotional adulthood. I don't know if you've talked about that much on this show, but I think becoming a high value woman, you have to become an emotional adult. And what emotional adulthood means is that you are taking responsibility for your pain and for your joy. When we say they're making me angry, or they're making me sad, or they're making me happy, we're putting all of our emotional state on someone else. And so when we can take that back and say, no, my thoughts about them are making me angry or whatever, but emotional adulthood is not expecting other people to make us happy, or not expecting other people to make us feel secure. And it's appreciating the people in our lives and still taking care of ourselves. So when we're talking about do what you want to do when they don't want to come, is when you really have to step into that emotional adulthood of like, yeah, this is something that I need to do to take care of myself. This is something I want to do to make me happy. This is something that is going to fill my social need. This is something that if he doesn't come, I might be a little bit sad, and I can be okay with that. But that doesn't mean that you have to be angry at them or mad at yourself. I think just understanding that you are deciding for yourself, what do you want to do? And you don't always have to do things together as a married couple. And that especially if you're newly married, there is this weird idea that we always have to do things together, right? And then being able to really grow into your own and become that emotional adult of your own life. I can do this and make myself happy. And when I come back, I'm going to be a way better wife. That is
Can you give us an example, Erin? Give us an example of something that you and your husband have worked through in this area.
Oh, there's so many. But one of the things is I do like hosting parties and having social interactions and being with friends. He does not care. And so when we were newly married and we had a lot of just like couple friends without kids, we did go out to dinner and do stuff with friends like that. But even then, it wasn't quite enough for me, and he didn't want to be with other friends as much as I did. And so I just started hosting girls' nights with my friends and with my neighbors. This year I've hosted multiple girls' nights, and he is thrilled. He doesn't want to be a part of it. He watches a movie, he'll put our toddler to bed. He's like, I'm totally supportive. And for me, that is something that has filled my cup so much. And I'm never mad, especially when I know that it's a girls' night. I'm not mad that he's not coming because no other husbands are coming. And it has allowed me to connect with even like the single people in my neighborhood. I have multiple single people. And so I feel like I'm even being more inclusive to them because it's not like a couples thing. But that has been the greatest thing for me to bond with other women, make better connections with my neighbors. But more importantly, is like I'm doing that because I want to. I don't feel like I have to. I genuinely want to have girls' nights and make friends. So that has been the biggest thing from this year of like, I'm doing this because I want to do it. And he never joins me and I never care. I'm always like, great, this is awesome.
So what about couples things? What about what if your friends or, family members or whatever have their husbands and they want to go do things and they want you and your husband to come and your husband just doesn't want to at all? I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
My husband does not like country music at all, like despises it. My sister and I, well, we were not in school together, but when I was younger, I loved to go country dancing. When I was in high school and in college and stuff, I would go to the, dance places and country dance. My sister did the same thing when she was younger, and her husband loved to dance together, and they go to, dance places and go dancing, and they want us to come. My sister wants me to come to these dance, parties and stuff. She knows that I enjoy those things.
Mhm.
And my husband is not coming. He just is not. There's no way. Like, he loves me beyond anything, but he's not doing that. And so I have not been able to go with them because it's a little weird for me to go someplace and dance with other
Men,
women's
that's not your husband. Yeah.
husbands. Like, I can't. I mean, all of them have their husbands with them and I don't have anyone. Like, I don't know. So I just don't go. Like, I
Mhm.
just haven't gone. But I would love to go and spend that time with my sister and dance and do all the things. But I'm married to him, so I don't want to do that. So tell me.
That's such a great example. So there's so many. I definitely think this is one of those situations we fall into the black or white thinking, the all or nothing. I'm going without my husband or I'm not going at all.
Mhm.
And there's so many alternative situations in this case because it sounds like you're choosing to be with your husband, even though that means sacrificing something that you want to do. But an alternative is, what can you do to bond with your sister that doesn't require country music or
Oh yeah,
dancing?
for sure. For sure.
Yeah, like, and I'm sure
Yeah.
you've already worked through a lot of that, right? But in situations like this, because there are certain ones, like my husband also is never going to dance, not going to. And a lot of the times I'm just like, well, I don't know if this is a fight, the cliche phrases of like, you have to pick your battles in marriage or whatever. But I do think it's one of those times where we get to decide, like, what is really important to me here? What do I really want to do? What is the top of my priority list? All of those things. And I tell my family and friends, if you can convince Sterling to go, then we'll go. And I could just kind of put it on him, and not to blame him or to throw him under the bus, but like, I do want to go, but I'm not going without him. So if you can convince him to go, I will totally go with you. And so I think there's a lot of different ways that we can treat ourselves emotionally, but what are alternatives to something else that you guys can do either with your sister and her husband? And because your husband might not ever go, but I'm sure you've already worked through all of that. Like, this might not ever happen for me again, and being okay with that too, because sometimes that is part of marriage, is that we do sacrifice things that used to be super fun for us that we don't get to enjoy anymore. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that
Well,
answers your question, because
I
I
would
don't
say-
know that there's any one right answer.
This is something that I've had to work through, because again, if I had to wait for my husband to come with me, I would do nothing. He's never around. In fact, so just yesterday at church, Patrick finally was able to make it. We've been going to this new church group since July. We moved into our house 3 weeks ago. But we've been going to this church group because we knew we were going to be moving in, and that was going to be our like forever group. And a lady came up to Patrick and she was like, "I thought your wife was a widow." And that is so common. I've had neighbors be like, "I thought you were like divorced or something." Like, like that's how much he's gone. But I would say, sure, if you want to go dancing, go dancing. Line dancing country, you can definitely line dance alone. Maybe you could drag a son to come with you, maybe a brother. Maybe there's some other people. Like I know we danced like in our church dances. I danced as a young person. There was nothing sexual about it. It was like two professionals dancing because you have to have a partner. I say, if you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. And that's how I am. Like, and so like, I know that lots of people, they're like, but you're married, you need to do it together. But the way I flip it is my husband loves to hunt. He loves to hunt. And this is a good example because this is not an area where we expect the wives to go, but it is exactly the same. We can be like, dude, that is your hobby. Go be in the mountains, hunt, be cold, be muddy, shoot your guns, do your chest pumping thing. Like that's totally fine. I don't have to go. And that does not make me a bad wife to go. And that's a good example because we don't have the expectation. Well, wives should go. I know lots of women, they love to go hunting. They kill bigger bulls than their husbands, right? Like they love to go hunting, and good on them. That's something they can do together. But if she doesn't want to go, we don't shame her. And her husband
I
doesn't
think it's
shame
different.
her.
It's different.
Why?
The hunting thing is different.
Why?
Because dancing is a couple thing. You have to have a partner that's the opposite sex
Mhm.
to dance. You don't have to have a partner when you're hunting, especially
you
when
should,
it's
it's
not the
unsafe.
opposite sex.
But see, I'm
See
saying
what I'm saying?
but this is in our brain. We're saying, I cannot go dancing if my husband is not there. That's the
No, I'm not.
attachment we have in our brain.
I actually go with my friend that's single.
Cool.
That's a girl.
Do
Like
it.
we've gone, like I've gone with her now,
Mhm.
and my husband's fine with that. But the whole, like, if he's going to go hunting, it's different than like dancing. Those two things are not the same.
Mhm.
So they
Well, I've
can't
had
be
many
compared.
conversations with my husband. They're not different. He sometimes feels rejected that I won't go with him. He wants
yeah,
to
for
share
sure.
his hobbies with me. So,
Right.
but like we just go. Like just go do it. So and we can pick anything. If you want your husband to go on the group date thing, I have been the third wheel, the eighth wheel, the seventh wheel, the ninth wheel, the 11th wheel on so many things, because how many wedding pictures have I stood in that it was me because I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if you don't go, if you hold back your life because your husband won't go, then you come home and you're resentful. You have a fight. Your marriage is crappy. Woe is me. There's a villain, there's a victim. You never do anything. I do everything. And then your marriage is gross. But if you just go be like, I wanted to go because I wanted to go, then you come home and you're happy. And yeah, you might mourn the ideal that my husband, I would love to do this, but you can flip it. Like if he has a group that does Legos, I don't know. I just picked that because that sounds like hell to me. If he was like him and his buddies, that their partners got together and raced, and it was like a full-on couples thing, I would probably want to poke my eyeballs out before I went to that. But I would want him to go. Right. So we can kind of use this. This is something I've really had to work on. And I know that in my realm, there are a lot of financial coaches that will not work with couples unless both couples are present. But because this is something that I empathize with so much, that I'm like, horse crap. Ladies, call me. Just come do financial coaching with me. You can have conversations when when you have your meetings together. But that's how I feel. If you had to wait for your husband for everything, that's how I feel. That would We would be divorced. I know that we would be divorced because that's too hard of a request. Sorry, Erin.
No,
Little-
you're totally fine. And again, you're offering some alternatives perspectives. But the thing that came to mind as Ruth was talking just barely is that I do think too, in situations like the dancing or anything else or hunting, we feel very definitive. Like I have to decide right now for the rest of my life. Like I'm always going to go with or without my husband. I'm going to go hunting or I'm not. And I think part of emotional adulthood too is just like, okay, yeah, I don't want to go today, or I do want to go today and my single friend's available and I want to go with her. And just owning our lives a little bit and just like, yeah, it has little to do with what they're doing or what they're not doing, and more to do like, how do I feel today? Do I need social interaction today? Do I need to stay home and watch a movie or read a book today? And just really it's going back to always taking care of yourself in the way that you need to be taken care of right then. So don't feel like you ever have to make definitive decisions of like, this is how it's always going to be, because then we really back ourselves into a really nasty corner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what we have decided with this dancing thing, because it's been going on, my sister's done it for years.
Oh yeah.
My sister and her husband will, my aunt and uncle have a great big barn, and they do like a barn dance, and they invite all the friends to go, and they have music and food and like all the things. They do it once a year, and it's a big thing, and I have never gone. And, but there's been some other things that I have gone, like I've gone to the rodeo with them and whatever. And now I have this friend that's single, and she loves country music, and she loves the rodeo, and she loves all the things. And it's been we've gone through a lot of things in our marriage, and we've talked about a lot of things, and we've grown, and we've understood each other, and both of us have grown up, right? Like we've matured in a lot of things. And so now it is, I like to do those things. I like to go dancing. I like to go to the rodeo. Those are things that I enjoy doing. And he is like, yeah, you like to do those things, and you should go. You should go with your sister. You should take your friend, and you should go. That sounds like a great idea for you. And I would love nothing more than to not do that with you. And I'm going to stay home. And so I think that the point of me asking that question and getting into this conversation is, it's not something that's solved right away. It has been years of us like sacrificing for each other and understanding each other, and me understanding why he doesn't want to go, and him understanding why I want to go.
Yeah.
And like now we're in a place where I can say, I'm going to go to this barn dance, and you don't have to. And
you can feel so comfortable with that decision. And I think that's great. I think that's proof right there, is that this is not like a one and done fix, right? And it's going to evolve. We're going to change. Our needs are going to change. And everything just changes so much that when we can be open and honest with each other along the way, I think that's when we can actually create the best relationships in every phase, because we can recognize that our needs are changing, and we can better help each other because we can have that awareness about ourselves and our partners. And it makes a huge, huge difference.
I think it just comes down to emotional adulthood, really. Like what you were talking about. Yeah, you guys have been married for 7 years. And I think back to when my husband and I were married 7 years, and where we are in our maturity in our relationship, and just maturity in ourselves at 25 years. If somebody could have told me when we were married at 7 years, like just like the whole emotional adulthood concept, then I would have been a lot less worried about it, because it means that we're here sooner.
Yeah, I love
emotional
that
adulthood
concept.
Happens sooner than
it was
25
one of
years
those
in, right?
it was one of those concepts that really gave me a lot of ownership and clarity, and I feel very fortunate to understand that concept. And I don't fully practice it at all, right? Like we all struggle, but to understand like this is something that I'm working towards, it makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
So if that's like any takeaways from this, like learning to be an emotional adult, that is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Anything else that you want to give us? We've kind of talked about all of the things that plan time together so that you can work through some things and
Mhm. Honestly, there's so much. We could keep talking about this for a long time, but the biggest thing I just encourage anyone to do is understand it yourself a little bit better, and you'll start understanding others. Because I think when we can understand ourselves, we can give more compassion to other people and why they behave the way that they behave. And then from there, your marriage will get better. The better you can understand your needs yourself, you'll start meeting your needs better, and you'll start being a better woman, and you'll start being a much better wife. And that makes a huge difference when you can take care of yourself a little bit better rather than relying on them so much to do it for you.
100%.
And I like the communication part, because when you understand yourself, then you can ask better for what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being like a toddler throwing yourself on the floor to be like, that's my sippy cup, like whatever, like in the female form that we do that, we can be like, it makes me feel blah, 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 when you do or don't blah, 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 blah. Then he could be like, oh, I certainly don't want to make you feel that way. Let me see what I can do about that. But I know that lots of times I can look back and be like, that was a total adult tantrum. And you said nothing useful to him.
Yeah.
Like if you were to throw that tantrum to
Mhm.
you wouldn't know what the heck you wanted either.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's also like, I feel strongly about emotional awareness and my own being aware of myself and
Mhm.
what I do and why is like the biggest skill. It's the answer to the universe. If you can understand your own self and why you feel the way you feel and why you do the things you do, the reasons for that, and then take ownership of it, take responsibility for that because it's
Mhm.
you are you, then it just makes so much difference in your relationship because you then are not delegating everything out to someone else's. It's not your husband's fault.
No, it's
All the
definitely
things,
not.
right? If we
Yeah.
can take emotional ownership and be responsible for ourselves and how we feel ourselves, then we can stop being mad at our husbands for not doing it for us and
Mhm.
not doing it right. Because I promise you, even if he could manage my emotions, he wouldn't do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the
Exactly.
only one that can do it.
And speaking specifically in this context, managing your social needs. I think that's what I was constantly waiting for, is for him to manage my emotional and social health. And I realized like he's completely incapable. First of all, he's an introvert, so he doesn't want to do what I want to do. But second of all, he's not me. He doesn't want to see the people I want to see. He doesn't want to go the places I want to go. He cannot fulfill the social need that I crave. And so now this is one reason why I coach, because I love talking and having conversations with other women and helping people, because that is one way I fulfill my social need. And so I love your emotional awareness, Sherry, because it makes all the difference in how you're going to take care of yourself and what you're going to do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Yeah.
it. Okay, Erin, tell
This
us
was
where to find you.
So
such a good conversation.
you can find me on all the social media platforms. I'm erinwoodruffcoaching.com or Erin Woodruff Coaching, or on my website, erinwoodruffcoaching.com. So I'm the same across all platforms.
Okay,
Awesome.
and then a good place to start is, you said you had a quiz about introvert and extrovert.
Mhm.
What other kind of things, a little quick offerings do you have people?
Yeah, I also have a podcast, which podcasts are great because they're free. It's called Time for You. And I talk a lot about this. And I'm doing a whole bunch of communication breakdown series right now on like taking communication parts of communication and breaking them down super bite-sized to help people learn how to communicate better and understand what they need. But I do have those quizzes you can take to learn how to be an introvert, or to identify whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert, and for your spouse as well. And I have a whole bunch of free resources. I have a hard conversations toolbox that walks you through how to have a hard conversation. If you're like, I don't know where to start, I don't even know how to begin, I don't know how I even feel about this, it's a great resource for you. And a lot of other great resources to just help you to become a better communicator so you can really articulate your needs and then essentially be happy, because that's really what we all want to do, right? And when we can take care of ourselves better, we're happier.
Awesome.
100%. Love it. Thank you so much for coming, Erin.
Yeah.
It has
Thank
been
you.
such a good conversation. I just loved it. And I know it's going to be super useful for the listeners and the people who watch this video. And I just can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing in the world. I think it's so, so, so needed. And I just commend you for
Well,
like raising your hand and saying, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll take the people through. So I just think
Thank
that
you.
is awesome. So thank you so much for coming. And everyone who's watching, thank you for watching and thank you for supporting us. We love you guys. And if there's anything that this spurred, any ideas that this conversation spurred in your mind that you'd like us to go more in depth with, we can for sure have Erin come back again if you want to know more things from Erin. And Ruth and I can definitely dive into some of these topics a little bit deeper too. So if you have anything that you want us to dive deeper in, please leave it below and leave your comments, and we'll see you guys next week. So have a great week, and we'll see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye.